There are different types of points inside of Marvelous Designer. The first one is the segment points. Those are the ones we use to create the garments or to physically split them. And they are in this dark color. The second type is the curve points. They're in different color and they behave differently. They do not split your garments physically. They are there simply to help to define the curvature of a segment. The handy thing to know about those points is that they can be turned into each other, meaning that the segment points can be turned into curvature points and vice versa. So let's take this segment or this garment as an example. Let's say that we want to have this line as one curve. So we can, instead of selecting two sides and moving, or perhaps we want to define the curvature in a different way, but we definitely don't want to have this curve to meddle with this procedure. All we need to do is right click on this point, and then there's the option to convert to curve point. As you can see, now we have one continuous line and we can do whatever we want with it. We can bend it, we can move it, and it's a much easier way of working. And sometimes we add segment points to support seam creation. So for example, in a situation where we have a sleeve and we need to connect it to the main body of a jacket or a t-shirt, we would put a segment point somewhere at the top of the seam, so it makes it easier for us to sew everything together. But in reality, the segment point shouldn't be there. It doesn't really do anything except for helping us with the sewing. So if we don't need anything and we don't need any of those things, we can, and we want to maintain the curvature, that's one way of doing that. The opposite works as well. If, for example, we have a curve point and we want to break this line into two segments, so it's easier for us to sew it to another part, or there is some kind of different procedure that we want to do with it, all we need to do is go into Edit Curve selection and then right click and convert to segment point. As you can see now, it's the segment point, it's a different color. And when we do that, there's a bunch of supporting curvature points being created, so the curvature of the segment stays the same. If we want to delete curvature altogether and have a straight line, there's an easy way of doing that. So one way would be to go into the curvature, edit curve point, and then select those points and click delete. But another way is right click on the segment and then press delete curve points. And this works it works well in combination with convert to curve point. So just by doing that, as you can see, now we have an interesting and clean line that we can modify and play around with. There might be a situation where there is simply way too many curve points for us to efficiently work with the garments. The situation that occurs most often is when we offset a segment as an internal line. So if we do this procedure, you can see the curvature is fine. It's the exact copy of the segment. But the problem is when I go into Edit Curve, and as you can see, there are just a lot of them. This is the kind of situation where it's pretty much unworkable if we wanted to modify this curvature in a different way. So one way to optimize this curve would be to individually select some of them and start deleting them using the delete key on the keyboard. But there's an automatic way of doing that inside of Marvelous Designer. And this feature works not just with a specific curve, but on all the curves that we have in the scene. So if we right click on the canvas, there's the option called Optimize All Curve Points. And if we click that, most of them are gone. So this is a very handy feature, because after this procedure is done, we can go and easily modify things the way we want. There is also an alternative way of moving points around. So if we click and drag this point, the lines that connect to this point behave in a predictable way, I would say. This is the way you would expect those lines to behave. But if we don't want those lines to be affected in such a way, but we want to move basically just the point itself and keep some of this curvature frozen, there's a way to do that, and we need to press D on the keyboard and then move the point. If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description. It's well, the behavior of the lines is different, and I'm gonna show you why. So if I let go, and this is the new curvature, and I go into Edit Curve Points, there was a point right here, and so when I was moving the segment point using the D key, this curve point was acting as an anchor. So let me illustrate this in a different way. Pay attention to this segment when I do the movement. So I'm holding the D key, and this is how it works. But if I insert a point somewhere in here, and this is remember, this is just a curve point. It doesn't break the segment, the line physically. It's the point that helps us create a custom curvature on the segment itself. So if I press D and I move this point, again, this is what happens. And to illustrate it even better, let me add another anchor point to support this curvature, because I don't want anything to happen in here. I want just this area to be affected by this movement. So if I insert another curve point and then I move it, this segment stays pretty much unchanged. And if I want it to be even more precise about it, I can add another curve points somewhere along the segment. It's a good and very useful way of moving things around, because sometimes that's exactly what you want. You want to have just there's just one specific area to be moving, instead of having everything to be dragging along with the segment point. And the last type of points to talk about is the internal line points. They have a different color, so it's a grayish whitish color. This means that those points are open points. So this is obvious when we create a line and we keep it somewhere, well, in the middle of nowhere, meaning that there's nothing that goes beyond that. So it's an open-ended point. But if you have it somewhere, for example in here, that means that those two lines, they're not connected. So if I click once, Marvelous gives me an option to select which point I want to select. And it's useful if we want to manipulate those points individually, but it's not very useful if you want to move everything at once. So one way to do that would be to select everything and then start moving things around. But at the same time, we can do something different. We can either simply right click on any of those points, and then there's the option to join overlapping points. If I click that, the color changes. It's no longer gray. It means that it's no longer open-ended. So I can click and drag, and that's how it behaves. If we had those points separate, if we had them at a distance from each other, there are a few ways to connect them together. So the first one would be to select one of them, and let's say I want to merge this point to this point. So I will begin by selecting this one and then right clicking on this one. And if I press merge to point, you can see what happens. Basically, the way it works is that the point that you right click is going to be the final position of the points. If we want to merge them somewhere in the middle, we can select the points, right click, and then click merge to average. The last option is the most interesting one. Let me move it this way. So if I select those points and right click, there's this option called intersect and merge. What it means is that those points, they're gonna shoot according to the vector, to the direction. So in this case, this point will shoot this way, and this point will shoot this way. And where they intersect, they're gonna merge. So let's see what happens when we select those points, right click, intersect, and merge. If for whatever reason we want to revert this effect, if we want to move those points individually again, all we need to do is right click on the point and then choose divide internal point. And so the color changes to gray, and Marvelous gives us an option to select which one we want to use.